Welcome to Therapy Facts with Dr. Jenn. Point number 2 from the Katt Williams Shannon Sharp interview is to honor yourself for who you are. So, Katt talks about how when he was younger, he was very smart and people would always ask him what he wanted to be. And when he did not say that he wanted to be all manner of scientist, mathematician, or rocket science, people would be disappointed or that was against their expectation. Katt talks about figuring out for himself what he wanted to do with his life. And then at a young age, by the time he was 13, he took reign over his life. And he talks about figuring out what he wanted to do with his life, which was to be a comedian, and the steps he took to get there. Very often people come to therapy and not, because I see people who need therapy all the time who don't get it, who have miserable lives because they chose to become in their adult lives who their parents expected them to be, and or also manage themselves in their childhood based primarily on their parents' expectation. And they come to therapy and they're miserable or not coming to therapy because there was no intention or no facilitation of helping them to understand who they were outside of the expectation of their parents and caregivers. And so you have adults who are very unhappy and have no idea of where to begin when trying to figure out who they are. Very often they have some understanding of who they are or some inkling that they are then talked out of or shamed about or moved away from in some deliberate manner, so that they then lose sight of any authentic self and have cognitive dissonance about who they are versus who they want to be. And so the take home therapy fact from this point number 2 from Katt is, even though parents may not be prepared to parent the particular child they had, one common parenting strategy that will serve children into for their whole lives is to help them figure out who they are, what they like, and what they want to do with those characteristics above and beyond what parents might dictate they should do with them. Now, when you're helping a child or a teenager or even an adult, in my case, in the therapy situation, figure out what they like, who they are, and what they want to pursue, it is trial and error. You may have a child who says, "Oh, I want to be a baseball player and a teacher," right? Or I want to try gymnastics and I want to learn how to bake a cake. And so we often know that exposure, experience, a wide set of opportunities is needed to help children hone in on who they are and what they want to do with who they are. Adults need the same experience. If you find yourself trying to figure out, what do I really like? Who am I really? What do I really stand for? Give yourself a wide breadth of experiences. Don't pigeonhole yourself or expect that you may answer that question in a day or two, or a week or two, or even a year or two. Because if parenting is done to help the child figure out who they are and who they want to be, that takes many, many years. That's a full childhood experience. That's a full 18 years, a full 25 years of parenting. And so if you find yourself as an adult in that place, it's going to take a while. But give yourself the opportunity to have the different experiences in order to point out or figure out what your set of likes and dislikes are. If you are in a situation where you're miserable, pinpoint what about it is miserable. It may be that in general, what you're doing in your life is okay, but you need to do a little pivoting or a little shifting that doesn't require a wholesale change or a wholesale withdrawal from what you're doing. Again, Katt stood on who he was, even when his parenting did not support who he was. He left his parenting experience and he went out and he continued to build on who he was. Of course, Katt's experience is somewhat unique, although there are plenty of people who have similar gaps in parenting and who can say they left home early and pretty much fended for themselves. You may not know a lot of them because you're of how you grew up or what your village looks like, but Katt is in great company. The biggest deal, though, for the takeaway, the therapy fact, is he took what he knew about himself and he built it in a positive direction. And so, anybody, that's the good news about the interview. Anybody can do what Katt did. Anybody can do all of what he did, or anybody can do little bits of what he did, and even small bits of what he did to build himself up and to honor himself, regardless of what people may have wanted for him in his life, is a testament to the human spirit. So you can do it too, and little bits will make big differences. Know that honoring yourself is the fundamental key to good mental health.